The late afternoon sun streamed through the glass doors of Joe's corner store, casting a warm glow on the aisles filled with snacks and everyday goods. This small, local shop had always welcomed friendly faces, but today felt different. The air was thick with an unusual tension as people bustled about, picking up items and chatting softly. In the back corner stood Tim, the store clerk. He was in his mid-20s, sporting a crisp blue apron and a neat haircut. Tim's short patience often matched his tidy appearance. He prided himself on keeping the store organized and running smoothly, but today he seemed more on edge than usual. As customers shuffled in and out, one man caught Tim's attention. The scruffy man looked out of place in the cozy store. His unkempt hair hung over his face, and his clothes were old and ragged. They were several sizes too big, giving him an almost disheveled look that made him appear as if he hadn't cared about his appearance in ages. Despite this, there was something striking about his eyes. They held a depth that suggested stories untold. Tim watched the scruffy man as he wandered the aisles, picking up a packaged sandwich and some chips. A hint of suspicion crept into Tim's mind. He couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't right. Perhaps it was merely the man's appearance that led to his judgment, but Tim could feel whispers of doubt forming. As the scruffy man approached the checkout counter, Tim's heart raced. His mood soured as he decided he wouldn't let his guard down easily. Little did he know that beneath this rough exterior lay a hero who had faced greater battles than any store clerk could imagine. This moment would soon change everything for both of them in ways they could never foresee. As the scruffy man approached the checkout counter, the store seemed to hold its breath. Tim, still on high alert, narrowed his eyes. The rhythmic beeping of the register blended with murmurs from a few nearby customers, creating a curious atmosphere. The shelves lined with colorful products stood as silent witnesses to the brewing confrontation. "Excuse me, sir," Tim said, blocking the scruffy man's path. "Did you pay for those?" His voice was firm, almost accusatory. The words hung heavily in the air, drawing the attention of other shoppers. A couple near the candy aisle stopped to listen, their eyes widening in surprise. The scruffy man's brows furrowed as Tim's words sank in. I just picked up some snacks," he stammered, momentarily taken aback. "I'm going to pay." He shifted nervously, clutching the items in his hands. A flicker of embarrassment crossed his face as he caught sight of the people watching them. "I don't want to hear excuses," Tim insisted, his expression cold and unwavering. The tension was palpable, even the usual sounds of rustling bags and scattered laughter faded into an uncomfortable silence. Customers whispered among themselves, some shaking their heads in disbelief while others looked sympathetic toward the scruffy man. One older woman stepped forward. "Now hold on just a minute. You can't accuse him like that without proof." Her voice broke through Tim's elevated anger, earning nods from others in line who felt equally uneasy about what was unfolding. "Yeah. That's not fair," a teenager added boldly, pointing at Tim. Taken aback by this collective support for the scruffy man, Tim hesitated. For a second, doubt crept into his mind. Was he being too harsh? As he considered this, an unexpected weight settled over him, the hint that perhaps appearances could indeed be deceiving. The atmosphere in Joe's corner store grew thicker as Tim, feeling cornered by the mounting support for the scruffy man, doubled down on his accusations. "I'm not going to let you steal from me," he shouted, his voice echoing off the shelves. The scruffy man stepped back, confusion and embarrassment washing over him. "Why would I steal?" he protested weakly, shifting his gaze from Tim to the growing crowd. He could feel their eyes piercing through him, some filled with sympathy while others held a mix of curiosity and judgment. Each whisper seemed like a dagger aimed at his pride. Tim leaned forward, arms crossed defiantly. "You know what they say about people who look like you. You think I'm just going to let it slide?" His tone dripped with contempt, showcasing the harsh judgment he had formed based solely on appearances. The other customers stiffened, their expressions shifting from surprise to discomfort as they watched this public humiliation unfold. The older woman who had defended the scruffy man earlier took a step closer. "That's not right," she said firmly, her voice steady yet kind. "Everyone deserves respect until proven otherwise." Her words hung in the air, but Tim shrugged them off, intent on maintaining control. Respect? You mean letting thieves walk all over us? Tim shot back, dismissing her concern with a wave of his hand. The humiliation deepened for the scruffy man as laughter erupted from a small group of teenagers nearby. They made snide comments about his appearance and whispered among themselves. The weight of these judgments felt unbearable. Although he wanted to respond and defend himself, all that came out was a quiet murmur as he looked down at the ground. In that moment of vulnerability, Tim's harsh demeanor only solidified the stigma against anyone who didn't fit into society's neat boxes. Little did they know that behind this tough exterior lay a heart capable of great bravery, a heart that had once earned accolades instead of scorn. As the tension in Joe's corner store hung thick in the air, the scruffy man's mind drifted back to memories of a different time, days when he wore a crisp uniform instead of ragged clothes. Each breath he took felt heavier as the humiliation pressed down on him, but within that weight were echoes of valor that had once defined his life. He remembered the day he received his first medal, a distinguished honor for bravery in combat. He had rushed into a burning building to rescue trapped civilians, ignoring the flames licking at his heels. The glow of pride and gratitude from those he saved had filled his heart, igniting a sense of purpose. He had been hailed as a hero then, celebrated by his comrades and community alike, but now all that seemed lost amidst whispers and judgment. Suddenly, an image flickered in his mind, the smiling faces of children whose lives he touched during his time serving overseas, offering comfort and hope in times of despair. They had seen him not just as a soldier but as a protector, a brother. But now, standing in the corner store, he felt like a ghost of that brave man, reduced to just an unkempt figure. As Tim continued to rant, the scruffy man caught sight of a newspaper clipping hanging on a bulletin board near the register. It was a faded article about him, the headline reading, "Local Hero Saves Lives in Blaze." His heart raced, a mix of anger and sadness surged through him. How could someone who once embodied courage now be seen as nothing more than a potential thief? His past felt like a distant echo against the reality surrounding him, a reminder that life can change in an instant. If only Tim could recognize that heroes come in all shapes and forms, perhaps he would see beyond the surface and understand the incredible story hidden beneath the scruffiness that now defined him. The humiliation washed over the scruffy man like a cold wave, leaving him momentarily paralyzed. He stood there, heart racing, every pair of eyes in the store fixed on him while Tim continued his tirade. For a split second, he considered defending himself, but the weight of shame clung to him like a heavy cloak. Instead of standing tall, he felt small and vulnerable, like a child caught in a lie. As Tim's voice echoed in his ears, the scruffy man's thoughts spiraled. How could someone who had once faced danger without flinching now feel so powerless? Memories of bravery surged through him, charging into flames, saving lives, but here he was, being accused of theft over a snack. The indignity felt unbearable. "Why don't you just leave?" Tim sneered, arms crossed defiantly. The words were sharp and cutting. The scruffy man fought the urge to turn and walk away, but something inside him stirred, a flicker of the hero he used to be ignited within. With a deep breath, he finally mustered the courage to speak. "I'm not stealing," he said, his voice low but steady. "I came here to buy food, just like everyone else." Although his words were quiet, they carried the weight of his past. But instead of finding strength in that moment, he felt the sting of embarrassment grow sharper as laughter erupted from a group of teenagers nearby. They mocked his appearance and whispered amongst themselves. It was as if their laughter was a reminder of how far he had fallen. The scruffy man's gaze fell to the floor again, feeling defeated. Deep down, he longed to shout out his truth, to reveal who he really was and the sacrifices he had made for others. Instead, he clenched his fists at his sides, fighting back tears that threatened to spill over. In that crowded store, he felt invisible, trapped in a moment where his past bravery seemed utterly forgotten. As the embarrassed scruffy man stood in silence, the tension in Joe's corner store began to shift. A few customers were exchanging glances, their expressions a mix of disbelief and concern. The older woman who had earlier defended him stepped forward again, her voice rising above the murmurs. "This isn't right. Just because he looks different doesn't mean he's a thief." Another customer, a middle-aged man wearing a baseball cap, nodded in agreement. "I've seen this man before. He helped save lives during that fire last year," he said, recalling the event with conviction. "He's no criminal, he's a hero." His words ignited a ripple of murmurs among the crowd as more people began to remember the brave deeds associated with the scruffy man. Tim shifted uncomfortably, his confident facade beginning to crack. "You can't just take his word for it," he retorted defensively, but his voice lacked its previous confidence. The young woman who worked part-time at the store chimed in from the back, her expression serious. "I've heard stories about him too. He sacrificed so much to save others." She stepped closer, determination in her eyes as she continued, "We should be treating him with respect instead of accusing him." The crowd started buzzing with voices of support, questioning Tim's judgment and urging him to reconsider his actions. The laughter that once echoed through the store faded away as more customers began to rally around the scruffy man. Whispers of admiration surfaced, hinting that not everyone believed Tim's accusations. With each passing moment, Tim felt increasingly isolated under the weight of growing scrutiny. The realization that many knew about the scruffy man's past shifted the atmosphere in the store. What had once been a moment of humiliation was now transforming into a powerful reminder of courage and resilience. Fueled by this unexpected support, it seemed as if hope was rekindling within the scruffy man, illuminating his path back to dignity amidst the chaos. As the dust began to settle in Joe's corner store, whispers of support for the scruffy man reached beyond the walls and into the local community. Just a few days later, news broke that would change everything. A local newspaper published an article featuring his photo prominently on the front page, capturing not just his face but also the hero he once was. The headline read, "Local Hero Saves Lives in Blaze, Man Overcomes Adversity." The article detailed how he had rushed into a burning building last year, saving countless lives, including that of a single mother and her children. Testimonials from grateful families flooded in, sharing heartwarming stories of how this decorated hero had risked everything at that moment. "He's my hero," one mother stated in the article. "He saved my kids when I couldn't reach them." As people circulated copies of the paper throughout town, community members began to piece together the truth about the scruffy man they had seen in the store. Social media buzzed with renewed admiration for him, with hashtags like #HeroInDisguise trending online. Former colleagues from his military days shared their memories of bravery and sacrifice, praising his unwavering spirit. Meanwhile, Tim sat at home reading about these revelations, his stomach sinking with regret as he flipped through pages filled with accolades and gratitude directed toward someone he had treated with disrespect. He could hardly fathom that this man, who he thought was guilty of theft, had once been celebrated as a beacon of hope. The next day, Tim walked back into Joe's corner store with a heavy heart and an even heavier sense of responsibility. He felt compelled to find the scruffy man again, not only to apologize but to acknowledge the profound strength hidden beneath his appearance. This realization dawned on him like a new light. Maybe it was time to look beyond superficial judgments and truly see the heroes in our midst. The following days after the newspaper article hit the stands became a whirlwind of conversations in Joe's corner store. Tim found himself serving customers who buzzed with excitement over the newfound recognition of the scruffy man. Each interaction filled him with a deepening sense of regret as he listened to their discussions about the brave acts he had once dismissed. One afternoon, while restocking shelves, Tim overheard a group of regulars discussing the hero's past. "Did you hear he saved a whole family in that fire? I can't believe they accused him of stealing," one customer exclaimed. Another chimed in, "He deserves our respect, not humiliation." As their words sank in, Tim felt an ache spreading in his chest. He recalled the moment he had confronted the scruffy man, how harshly he had spoken without knowing anything about him. The thought gnawed at his conscience. How could he have been so quick to judge someone based on how they looked? The media continued to run stories highlighting the scruffy man's heroics, showcasing testimonials from those whose lives he had saved. Each story told painted a portrait of bravery and selflessness that was impossible to ignore. As Tim typed out an order for supplies one day, he caught a glimpse of a newspaper headline on his co-worker's desk, "Local Hero Triumphs Over Adversity." The picture accompanying the article was unmistakable. It was the same man Tim had publicly humiliated. Every new detail only deepened Tim's sense of shame. He wished he could turn back time and undo his actions in the store. Perhaps if he had taken a moment to listen instead of judging, he would have recognized the potential for greatness behind that rugged exterior. That evening, as Tim sat alone at home, he wrestled with his feelings. He knew he needed to apologize, not just for himself but for everyone who had failed to see the heroism within those who don't fit society's mold. It was clear now, true courage comes in many forms and often hides under the surface when least expected. Finally gathering his courage, Tim decided it was time to seek out the scruffy man. He had thought about this moment countless times since the incident, rehearsing his apology in his mind. With each repetition, he envisioned how he would address the man he once accused unfairly. Today would be different. He wanted to take responsibility for his actions and truly acknowledge the hero the scruffy man was. As Tim stepped outside, the sun shone brightly, but it felt dim compared to the weight of his shame. He walked down the street toward a local park where many people often gathered. There, among a small group of friends, he spotted the scruffy man sitting on a bench, looking far more relaxed than he had in the store. The man appeared contemplative, watching children play nearby and occasionally smiling at their laughter. Tim hesitated for just a moment as dread filled him again. But he pressed onward, approaching with an earnest heart. "Excuse me," Tim started gently, drawing nearer. The scruffy man turned to look at him, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Hi," Tim continued, voice steadying as he spoke. "I'm here to apologize for what happened at Joe's corner store. I treated you unfairly and judged you based on how you looked, rather than who you are." He searched for sincerity in their connection. The scruffy man's expression shifted from surprise to something softer, understanding perhaps. "I appreciate that," he replied quietly, looking down briefly before meeting Tim's gaze again. "But it's not easy being judged by appearances." "I know now that I failed to see your true value," Tim admitted. "You're a hero and deserve respect." In that moment, both men realized they were growing from this experience. Tim learned compassion beyond superficial judgments while the scruffy man felt validated as someone worthy of recognition despite his struggles. As they shook hands firmly, there was an unspoken bond forming between them, a mutual understanding that transcended judgment and shame, moving them both towards healing and respect. In the days following their heartfelt conversation, both Tim and the scruffy man began to reflect deeply on the lessons learned from their experience. Tim, now more mindful of his actions, realized the immense power of compassion. He understood that judgments based solely on appearances could lead to grave misunderstandings and pain. This awareness sparked a commitment within him to always look beyond what met the eye, recognizing that everyone has a story worth hearing. Meanwhile, the scruffy man felt a renewed sense of hope and dignity. The acknowledgement of his bravery not only validated his past but also reminded him that heroism doesn't always wear a uniform or carry medals. It can be found in everyday acts of kindness, courage, and sacrifice that often go unnoticed by society. He began to share his story with others, not to seek validation but to encourage compassion and understanding among those who might overlook the quiet heroes in their midst. As Tim continued working at Joe's corner store, he started conversations with customers about the importance of kindness and acceptance. Inspired by the scruffy man's story, he even organized a small event to honor local heroes in the community, inviting people to share their experiences and celebrate resilience in all forms. This shift in perspective fostered a warmer environment in the store, where customers were encouraged to connect with one another rather than judge based on appearances. The atmosphere transformed into one of mutual respect and support. Through this journey, both men emerged changed. Tim learned that true integrity comes from recognizing the value in everyone, while the scruffy man found strength in sharing his truth. Their paths converged not just for a moment of conflict but as a powerful reminder that empathy can bridge gaps between our differences, allowing us all to be seen as heroes in our own right.